Kia ora and good morning. Welcome to Love Literacy Inspired, a podcast where we explore the real stories behind Aotearoa's literacy journeys. I'm Heather Down, founder of Love Literacy and passionate advocate for structured, evidence-based teaching. Each episode, I sit down with inspiring New Zealanders, teachers, parents, advocates, and learners to hear how literacy has shaped their lives, their work, and their hearts. Whether you're in the classroom, at the kitchen table, or just keen to learn, I'm so glad you're here and let's dive in. So, today I'm really excited to be talking to Dr. Eunice Fuchs, who is currently working as an interventionist in Whangarei, also running a tutoring practice, and previously was nursing. Hopefully, I got everything correct. So I'm really excited to have a chat to you. And I just wanted to say, just before we get too far into it, the weather is impacting us a little bit today. So we're fingers crossed that the technology plays the ball and lets us record really well. But yeah, welcome along. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I'd just like to throw it out there and say, could you start and just give us a little introduction of about yourself today?
Thank you for having me, Heather. We met at the Nancy Young conference. Nancy Young was sponsored by Lifting Literacy Aotearoa in January, and we both met at the table with her. I was privileged to be able to meet one of the icons of literacy in
Yeah.
the world. I mean, I yeah, that was pretty cool. So, my background is in nursing. I was originally born and raised in Puerto Rico, but I was trained in nursing in the United States, and I was a nurse practitioner. So I worked as a diagnostician and a physician extender in critical care units, trauma centers, etc., for about nearly 10 years before I moved to New Zealand.
Mm.
We initially came as an OE experience, kind of sabbatical once we had our children, and we stayed.
Yeah,
Can't
didn't
beat
we?
New Zealand. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, after that, my children started school when they were old enough, and particularly my daughter was identified to have dyslexia traits. And at the time, there was not a lot of knowledge of structural literacy. And so, even though I was working as a lecturer for nurses, um, I I had to abandon my career to train in the pedagogy and to be able to remediate my own children's needs. So I homeschooled for about 3.5, nearly 4 years. And in that time period, I was able to remediate their reading limitations, and they re-entered school in 2022, having gained that amount of experience and the fact that I enjoyed it. I genuinely enjoyed it. And I wanted to have a flexible job. I just worked part-time in the hospital and I started a tutoring practice, and it grew from there.
Oh, wow. And it's
Mhm.
actually, yeah, there are so many, I'm hearing so many of these stories now where it's been our children who have driven that desire to work within literacy, and it started our own literacy journey. And you're right, I totally agree with you. Even though dyslexia and knowing about dyslexia has been around for nearly 100 years, we still didn't really have a good understanding of the methodology needed in order to support it. So, can you tell me how did you obviously they went to school, and was it the teacher who thought that they possibly had dyslexia at school? Or your son possibly had dyslexia? Was it you that picked that up?
Mhm.
Right. And what led
So,
you to that?
I mean, it's possible that my training as a diagnose, I was a nurse practitioner with critically ill patients, paralyzed and sedated, postoperative patient. Nobody was telling me,
Mhm.
oh, I have this and that. So you had to develop very strong observation skills.
Yeah.
And when my daughter started going to school and we started getting these readers, and I noticed the emotional distress and how she would transpose words from one page to the next. The fact that she didn't read how my brain read.
Mm.
I just made that observation. And then we went for 6 weeks to Germany, I think in 2016. And in that process, I committed with the teachers that I would do schoolwork. And it was that experience where that really enabled me to observe directly what was going on with her. And when I came back, I come and tell the teachers, I'm concerned. There's something not quite right here. And I was told to wait because we not don't identify them until they're past 10 years old,
Which is too late.
but which is too late. But at the time, I mean, what,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
had no idea. And it was through sharing in a conversation with other parents at a dinner table. And they told me, I said, you could possibly be looking at dyslexia. And they referred me to Susan Barton. So Susan
Mm.
Barton is well known in the States as a dyslexia advocate, and she developed the Barton solutions, brighter solutions for dyslexia. So I went to her advocacy page called Brighter Solutions for Dyslexia. I watched her videos, and after that, I was convinced that that's what my daughter had. It took a little longer to get my husband on board. He also needed to observe that himself.
Mhm.
He's a doctor.
Mhm.
And so, it was a whole process of identification, and we finally, got her identified. And initially, I tried to do the structural literacy in school,
Yeah.
but by year 3, her mental health was not good. Her anxiety level was not good. I also noticed when I went in there, the sensory overload
Yeah.
was hindering her ability to focus. And so we decided, based on the impact that her difficulties was having on her self-esteem, self-efficacy, anxiety, that it was best. And I was advised, quite frankly, I was advised by, by the president of the Australia Dyslexia Association
Mm.
and by Susan Barton herself.
Mm.
They said, given this mental and emotional distress, it's probably
Mm.
best for you to take her out of school, remediate her, and return her to school. And that worked out quite well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we can't take that emotional side of it lightly, the anxiety side, because I mean you would know a lot more than me, but one of the things that I do know is that when a child isn't feeling good, um, they're not going to be learning at all. So
That's
yeah.
correct.
And if you've
Yeah.
got that dyslexia and everything else coupled in there, plus the immense stress that they're under. Um, yeah, we can
They're not in the green zone,
not in the green zone. Yeah.
what what teachers call being in the green zone.
Mm,
And so, and also the intensity of what's needed is not going to be there unless the school has adopted a structural literacy pedagogy.
mm,
So, for example, my son now goes to school, but he gets structural literacy every day through the Ideal platform because so I don't have any problems
mm.
because he's getting the intensity. Whereas even in tutoring practice, that's not possible to achieve because most, most people don't have the money to pay for that kind of intensity.
Yeah.
That would be required. So for us, and I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I underwent the training because the amount of money I would have had to
Mm,
spend not only on my daughter, but later on my son
mm,
was going to be astronomical. It was
mm,
actually cost effective for me to train.
mm,
And thankfully, we had the means to not having one income
mm.
so that I could do it. The other thing we found out was that initially we tried to share the responsibility between my husband and I, but that's when we found out who has dyslexia, which he has dyslexia.
He has
And
dyslexia. Oh
and
my gosh.
and he
Okay.
has a lot of degrees. But to be honest, I only found out through his sister. His younger sister was the one who told me, "Did he tell you he struggled to learn to read?" And I was like, "No."
Wow.
There's all these things that when your children are there, there's all because we have a less, you have to remember we live in times that is much less stigma. It's
Mm,
much more normalized.
mm,
So then families that have been hiding things in shame actually say, well, actually, and it creates, it's not only this opportunity for the learner, but it's an opportunity for the entire family to make sense of their experiences. And so not only him, but then my brother came out of the woodwork. He even told us he used to pay his university mates to read books to him. My brother unfortunately died 3 years ago from cancer,
sorry.
and he died nearly illiterate, even though he had an IQ of 145 and was a very successful person after graduating from university. But that process of schooling was grueling and terrible. So all of these things come to the forefront, and it represents a new opportunity for a new generation and for us to make sense of what happened in the past.
Yeah, and we spoke briefly offline, and the whole thing with the whole reason that I love the journey is that we have to understand, and we did, yeah, as I say, we spoke a little bit about this, but we need to understand where we've come from in order to understand where we're going. And because dyslexia and various parts of neurodiversity are so intergenerational,
Mhm.
understanding that complex background of where we've come helps to pave that pathway forward and better support the children, our children, children we teach, but our children's children and our children's children. And when I say that, dyslexia is lifelong, dyslexia is lifelong long for my son, dyslexia is lifelong for me, and I'm watching out for my children's children because
Okay.
I know that this is coming through. And that's so fascinating because my parents, well, my mother, we believe, was actually on the spectrum. But on my husband's side, once we delved a little bit more into dyslexia as well, we found out that my husband's father, on his side, there was dyslexia. On my mother and my mother-in-law, on her side, there was dyslexia as well. So from both sides of the family, it basically channeled its way
I
down.
don't know if there's any research on this. I'll be curious to find out. But what I find by observing many neurodiverse students I work with and my own children is the fact that neurodiverse people find their tribe with other neurodiverse people.
Ah, that is interesting.
And if there is a certain familiarity,
Yeah.
that they don't feel different when they're with these people.
Mm,
So what happens is they end up getting together and having children. I mean, I don't know if there's any research in this. This is just anecdotal, what I myself have experienced. Because now we know both of my parents came from lines that both had ADHD. My siblings, myself, although I didn't have learning difficulties. My siblings both did, but I didn't. And my ADHD seemed to have been mild until I hit perimenopause.
mm,
So, so there is all these hormonal aspects to it as well. Um, so I was able to manage with good structures. I was good at organizing. So my desire for structure and order was an absolute need. It wasn't that I was a neat freak. It's that that's the only way I could cope with my ADHD symptoms. So, so I would say that, it's like I tell my husband, we know this, and we tell our children, when you have children, we will be there to help you. Because we don't know, we may need to run another homeschool again, you
mm.
know? So hopefully by then schools would have understood a lot more about, the teachers will be better equipped. And maybe my daughter doesn't need to homeschool her kids or my
Mm,
son. But
mm,
if that needs to happen because they found in another person that is neurodiverse their tribe, then we fully understand that this is a intergenerational commitment to support. each other.
Yeah, yeah, and oh yeah, that's quite profound. It actually makes me think of myself a little bit. Yeah, and obviously your experience with ADHD would personally and as a parent would have shaped how you advocate for that inclusive teaching process
The
and
bulk of my
practice as
work
well.
is the bulk of my work currently because
Yeah.
it's a bit troubling to me. It's a pattern I've noticed that I would say most assessors of dyslexia document all of the signs and symptoms of ADHD, and yet they're not referred.
Right, right. Okay.
It is almost ubiquitous in most, I mean, most of, if it's dyslexia alone, we know the treatment for dyslexia is education.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
dyslexia, there is the realization that dyslexia very rarely runs by itself.
Mm,
So you have to it's an awareness now. I think we call it neurocomplexity. It's also a realization that ADHD also travels, occurs frequently with autism traits, even if it's not to a clinical threshold. We know that dyslexia co-occurs with developmental language disorder, and all of these neurodiverse conditions affect executive functions.
mm,
So executive function is one of the strongest predictors of academic success and life success.
mm,
So I would say that the bulk of my work is, yes, parents go to get answers for the academic difficulties, and yet I find that most spelled assessors and even most psychologists are not identifying the other comorbidities, partly because it's difficult to assess that in
yeah.
a one setting, in a one time that you see them. However, it is now best practice to profile executive functions when you do assessments, and that's not being done. So I've noticed that. So that's where I pick up the slack. I have normed and standardized forms to profile executive functions, particularly if there is resistance to evidence-based intervention. So then we can refer for either the speech language therapist or the psychiatrist or pediatrician. And even then, at a secondary level, refer parents to ADHD coaches because
Mm,
medication is not the only answer.
mm,
So what I've noticed is that they are documenting all of the symptoms of, what ADHD and dyslexia look like in a cognitive assessment. But perhaps it's because I'm a trained diagnostician. I was trained to create a differential diagnosis and specifically rule out one after the other until we get to the right names. It's not about labeling, it's that you cannot support that you cannot name.
mm, mm, mm,
So it's all about, and it's not deterministic either. We know the risk factors are modifiable. So if you don't identify them, you don't have the proper name for it, then you cannot establish the proper supports. And then you cannot risk strategize and you cannot risk modify. So it becomes a public health issue
mm,
because we know these individuals have 10 to 11 years less life expectancy. Their outcome is in almost every domain of life is less quality than an average neurotypical individual or those ADHDers who are treated.
mm.
Socially, financially, health outcomes, academic outcomes, socioeconomic outcomes. This is a public health matter.
Yeah, yeah. And what I find as well is that a lot of the time when I'm asked to fill in that form, I fill in that form I find is so difficult. And you have to think as well, and I think
Yes.
this is really important for teachers, a lot of these kids will be masking in school. And the teachers will just sit there and go, no, they're fine. They are a model student. They're absolutely amazing. I mean, I mask. I
Mm-hmm.
and I had a complete absolute breakdown at the end of last year because my masking got to the point where it was like I don't even know who I am anymore. So yeah, the fact is
Absolutely.
we have to dig deep, and I sort of feel with you. A lot of the questions that we're asking at the moment don't dig deep enough.
That is where I think the nurse, like, I don't think that nursing has been associated with the school system in terms of vaccination and this and that. I do think there is a strong role for the nursing hat in neurodevelopmental condition identification and management. And
Mm,
because I'm in the sharp end of the sword, I'm able to work with these individuals. That is something that as I start to work in the school setting, we are trying to develop a role, and I'm also communicating with the New Zealand School Nurses Association because this is kind of a new role. How,
mm.
I just happen to be in a position to have both nursing skills and um,
Yeah,
no, special education skills. It just happened because of the needs of our family.
yes.
But in general, you know, teachers are public health practitioners. They're just not aware that they are, but
Mm,
they are. And Dr. Pamela Snowden, when she came to the Learning Matters conference a couple of years back, that was probably the most profound statement she made in that conference.
yeah,
Teachers are public health practitioners,
yeah.
and they're not being equipped to do so. There is also a very strong bias in education academics that everything is environmental. And I'm very sorry, not everything is environmental.
No, no, it's
And
not.
when I started taking postgrad courses in education, I noticed there is a very strong bias that everything is constructed, and there are many things we construct, but it's almost as if the brain doesn't exist
Mm,
or that neurology doesn't play a role in how people co-construct their reality.
mm,
So the education field as a discipline is really downplaying the impact of neuroscience, cognitive science, and biology in co-creating social realities. And that is a bias they have, and it's a bias they don't recognize that they have. And because of that, teachers are not being equipped to have the lens to view these things for what they are. These are neurodevelopmental conditions are based in neurology.
mm,
It's not abnormal. It's part of a continuum of neurodiversity. And yet, these individuals have certain hidden struggles that, if not supported, can lead to very costly outcomes for society. Not
mm,
only the individual,
mm,
society.
mm.
And
Absolutely.
so you pointed out something about the psychometrics of it. And that's what I have found as well. There are psychometric limitations to the current tools, like the Vanderbilt tool, the Connors tool, the SNAP for questionnaires that are being used, because they're relying on parent and teacher assessments. They're not asking the person who's suffering and if they're very good at masking, if they're very good at, or they have inattentive AD, or
Mm.
or their symptoms are mild or moderate, not severe, because we are not asking them their experience of their reality, we are missing the boat.
But
Because
and
unless you,
oh, sorry, yeah, and I was just
Mhm.
going to say, and the thing is that because we're not sometimes we're not asking the right questions either. And
Correct.
in their reality, this is all they've known, and this is how they function, and they don't know another reality. It's like whenever you get too deep in anything, whether it's
Hmm.
anxiety or
Hmm.
I mean, I'll take anxiety as a good example. You spend so long in anxiety that you actually don't realize that there's another way to live. And that's the other thing with ADHD and children is that they spend so long in this little box of their mind that it becomes so normalized. Um,
Hmm.
and I guess too, like parents might miss it too because they've been living such a long time with their child. And
And with
again,
their families, usually their families will, they themselves will struggle with it. To them,
yes,
this is, but the enormous amounts of energy that they're investing to
mm,
live in a neurotypical world
yes,
is enormous, and it
yes,
leads to the depression. It leads to the anxiety
yes,
because of chronic, unsupported, unsustainable levels of stress.
yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's that little point where the brain basically just goes, you know what? I'm tapping out.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. I've had enough.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm really
Hmm.
interested a little bit if we can talk. I know that we've delved a lot into ADHD, and I do actually find this quite fascinating. Um, just that little bit about ADHD and perimenopause. I find that really interesting because I sort of feel like there's a bit of skepticism out there, and you see this a lot in social media. And quite honestly, I deal with this a lot with parents who, when I suggest that they go and get an ADHD diagnosis, that there's the old eye roll. Um, and so, yeah, just can you talk to a little bit about ADHD and perimenopause and this later aspect? Why do the symptoms seem to come out around then?
It's not only perimenopause, it's also postpartum.
Postpartum. Oh,
So,
wow. Wow.
so it has to do, yes. And I am, as part of my Precure networks, I'm part of the neurodiverse network. And in that network, there are many of us who were told we had postpartum depression when that was really
My mother had
ADHD.
postpartum depression.
So the yes, so the situation is that estrogen. So it's not just dopamine that affects um, that is affected. It's actually also a network called the default network. It's not just about structure. The brain is complex. And it involves different neurotransmitters, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine. And estrogen is a mediator of good functioning.
Oh,
So
yeah.
anytime for women in particular that there's large fluctuations in estrogen,
Yeah.
you will have mental health difficulties because
Mm.
the estrogen is also helping it first is an anti-inflammatory hormone, so it does have anti-inflammatory properties, but also it mediates dopamine function. So when you have children and you're breastfeeding, estrogen drops, or when you're entering perimenopause and menopause, then you will experience, the working memory difficulties, cognitive processing speed difficulties, more difficulties with executive function. I am a highly educated person, as you know,
Mm,
and
mm.
I noticed I could no longer understand what I read. I had to read it over and over and over, and I don't have dyslexia, I know that much.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
so it was actually more working memory difficulties, um, problems with reading comprehension and sending my kids and my husband to the wrong place at the wrong time too many times. And they're
Wow.
like, something is wrong
Okay.
because I am the one who is the most structured to handle everybody's calendar. And when I'm sending people to the wrong place at the wrong time, they're like, this is not normal.
Mm,
This is not who you are. And so initially I went actually to a specialist
mm.
and I was told to just balance my life.
Oh my gosh. Someone
And
actually
I'm
told
sorry,
me
but
the other,
I'm not unique. It happens so much. Women just get sent. I say, oh yeah, I'm gonna book my flight to Bali
yeah,
like tonight.
yeah,
You know, as if that is really going to solve the problem. It
yeah.
took me 2 years of me trying to balance my life and make changes to my life. And then finally I decided to pay for the private specialist.
Right.
And the process is costly
Yeah.
because the specialist has to determine that the symptoms were there since childhood. That is not perimenopause, but that the symptoms were there since childhood. So the specialist underwent a diagnostic interview with myself and my parents for 3 hours.
Wow.
And that's part of why it is difficult and why even specialists will try to downplay your symptoms because it is not something that you just go fill out a form,
Yeah.
especially as an adult. They have to establish that that was there in childhood. So the process, the diagnostic process is long
So what do
to
you,
create your differential diagnosis that is not just menopause, because menopause causes working memory, aging causes working memory
yeah.
difficulties.
Yeah. What are your thoughts then on the doctors being able to diagnose, I mean not diagnose, prescribe, sorry, ADHD
Yeah,
medication?
yeah. I mean, I am of two minds about that.
Mm,
I am thankful that services will be available
mm,
to particularly to young people. Because it's
mm,
going to be easier for young people to be identified because usually they have parents that are still alive. They don't have to go through a whole life history.
mm,
So access will be increased. I'm thankful about that. I do worry
mm,
that even among specialists, sometimes there is a lot of misinformation about what the ADHD is. And so if, because like I said, like they might be fixated on treating anxiety, whereas anxiety is a big symptom of ADHD.
yeah.
So
Okay.
they might be treating symptoms of more latent
Yeah.
difficulty. Also because individuals that are highly accomplished and have managed through life, they have enacted so many coping strategies that they mask their ADHD traits.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I mean, I hope that with the prescriptive privileges, there's going to be significant supports provided to GP and nurse practitioners
Mm,
to be able to, to see the, you know, to be able to conduct a proper diagnostic interview. But
mm,
the process is lengthy. It's not like a 15-minute. So our GPs are already stressed. We
mm,
have difficulty accessing GPs.
mm,
So yes, I'm happy about the increased access. I think that's going to make identification of these conditions less of a socioeconomic
mm, mm.
basically what happens is people who don't have the socioeconomic means
Yeah.
will not get identified or supported, and those that do will, so it will become, more accessible, but that needs to come with a good program of education and also making time available for GPs to be able to conduct
Mm,
this lengthy
mm.
diagnostic this the one of the questionnaires called the DIVA questionnaire. I mean, that takes a long time to be completed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there needs to be some system-wide, whether or not in the system when somebody wants that type of evaluation that they complete their side of so part of the work is done, and then there needs to be some system-wide supports for GPs and
Mm,
nurse practitioners to implement this in reality.
mm,
That's my,
mm.
that's my,
Yeah,
would
we
be my,
definitely can't have a 10-minute doctor's appointment where the doctor's already running 20 minutes late and the next thing you know, it's
that's not going
sign
to
off
happen.
and off you go.
And like you say, we have psychometric limitations.
Mm,
A screening tool can give us a good indication,
mm,
but it's just the beginning of a diagnostic evaluation.
mm. Yeah. Anyway, I feel like I could talk. I am highly interested in this, and I think this will spark a lot of people to be looking through a different lens, which I'm really excited about within the classroom, which is part of the goal of all of this. But I do want to talk a little bit about what you're doing at the moment. So we're kind of going to do a nice big pivot because at the moment you're working in secondary school as an interventionist. And how are you finding that side of your role at the moment?
Well, I mean, I'm passionate about what I do. I have
Mm,
been in education for a long time, not just even when I was a nurse. So I love it.
mm,
Um, I am impressed by the level of work, the workload of teachers. Um, it is astonishing,
mm,
the workload that they have.
mm,
And so that has been part of my role is supporting teachers in my school. when we identify someone with ADHD traits that also
Mm.
have learning difficulties, providing the highlight, the bullet points. You're going to, provide instruction visually and auditorily. So I am able to kind of, be supportive of the teacher to implement strategies in the classroom that will level the playing field for these students.
Mm.
I do quite a bit of parent education
Mm.
and student advocacy with parents. Not every parent is ready to confront that reality,
Yeah.
and it's a process for them.
Mm.
They also need to, yeah, it's also about them undergoing their own grief, um, mourning the death of normal.
Yeah.
Um, um, and I do facilitation for the learning support staff in my school. So it's kind of hodgepodge of things. The majority of my work is intervention, but then I also provide some supports to the staff. And we are now looking at maybe, next year, um, yeah, to be employed in more hours and then adding some nursing bits to my work. As I mentioned, in order to combine special education with nursing, I have undergone the Procure Mental Health Coaching certificate,
Yeah.
which has given me really good skills, interviewing skills, motivational, but also coaching because students do need executive functioning coaching and not just education about their neurodevelopmental conditions. They need coaching. They actually need coaching
Mm.
to understand how neurodevelopmental conditions affect mental health, affect their organizational skills, their academic functioning. And that's all part of me trying to, you know, blend those strands.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I know this is, I don't want to oversimplify anything too much, but at the end of the day, the simple view of reading, the simple view of writing, all of our literacy, it's all underpinned by executive function. And if we can't function at that top level, we can't filter down into reading and writing. So I think they did call it the simple view of reading and the simple view of writing, but then it's the not so simple because of the fact that we need to take into account that executive function. Um, yeah,
It's a
yeah,
wonderful framework. I don't want to understate the beauty of simplicity,
absolutely.
because there is beauty in that simplicity, and it allows us to organize observations in a meaningful way that can then guide our further probing. I
Yeah,
think that's the power of that
yeah.
framework, particularly whenever you put it in the context of what the profile of a certain neurodiverse condition would look like in that quadrant.
Mm.
Then, and the other thing is, I mean, if I could go back, I would also consider a career as a speech language therapist because the
Oh,
underlying skills that underpin literacy and writing is linguistic comprehension and language comprehension.
yes.
And language comprehension and language abilities are strongly tied to our ability to regulate ourselves. So many students that have behavioral difficulties also have language impairments, and that's why they're so dysregulated because they cannot tap into their language abilities to regulate their inner world, and they cannot communicate effectively their experience. So it's not only executive functions, it's also linguistic abilities and speech language. I mean, I am connected with academics in speech language therapy, and I follow their newsletters, and that's exactly why, because it's a much broader perspective from which to view literacy and writing skills and behavior in school.
Exactly. And if we think about I say students, but I mean learners, children on the spectrum. And it's those language skills which are quite often developmentally delayed, and then we have the
That's
sensory
right.
overload, and then
Hmm.
incredibly dysregulated.
Hmm.
Yeah, all coming back to that need to communicate and not having the ability to communicate.
Or like students that have developmental language disorder and
Yeah,
they just simply cannot understand what's being read, the test. What is the test question asking them?
yeah,
You
yeah.
have, you actually have to support them through a speech language therapy, who then, in a therapy setting, in addition to what you're doing, is able to explain academic language, is able to take disciplines and craft the schemas and how vocabulary fits into that. I am very much involved now in numeracy remediation. Actually, most of my students are struggling in math. And I was trained with Math Australia in multisensory math pedagogies. So math is a language.
Mm,
And so because of my experience teaching literacy, in my training, I teach math as a language, and teachers are not necessarily addressing the linguistic comprehension limitations in abstract symbols and how we need to create
yeah,
a framework of reference
yeah.
that these symbols mean something and this is what they mean.
Mm,
So language is human, is the probably the essence of what it means to be human. And so, and it's affected by neurodiversity.
mm. Yeah, and it's making me think of a couple of things. So number one, I I always look at my Facebook memories, and one of the Facebook memories that I had was about the language with handwriting. So that's the number one, and I don't want to forget my number two that I'm thinking about. But no, my number one was the language that we have these little 5-year-olds coming in, and we're teaching them to write, and we're saying things like curve and slant, around, up, and down. I mean, what I said the word slant to one of my students the other day because it's an irregular word. It's got the R
Mhm.
sound. And he said, "Oh, what does slant mean?" And I thought,
Mhm.
"Oh my goodness." Here I'm sitting with a 9-year-old, and that is the language that we want our 5-year-olds to understand: curve, slant, around, up, to left, to the right. And my other one, again, is on the language with numeracy. And that is because I'm teaching a student over Zoom, and the parent said, "Oh, she's having a lot of trouble with maths as well." And on the new curriculum, there's actually a whole table of maths language, and I looked at some of it and I thought, "Oh my gosh, I need to start teaching some of this in my literacy sessions, because some of
Correct.
these words, in order to, and this is years 2 and 3 with maths language. Um,
Mhm.
of course, I can't remember any of them right now, but the type of language was there, like you say, the academic language. It's unique on its
It's
own.
also the importance of morphology.
Yeah. Yes.
So when we are really presenting morphology, like the schools that are already trained in structural literacy and have been adopting it for some time, they're past the phonology aspects of it, and they are able to incorporate morphology more proactively. You're
Mm.
only preparing that student to succeed at secondary level because those type of words are the ones they're going to encounter in
Yes.
secondary and university level text. So that all needs to be quite intentional.
Yeah.
I don't not sure that this is being secondary level teachers may assume that kids arrive with certain linguistic abilities and certain linguistic skills that they don't have.
Mm.
And so it becomes important for us to be explicit about the terms, what it means, What does it mean to examine something? What does it mean to compare? What does it mean to
Mm,
contrast? What does it mean to identify? What is describe?
mm,
And so, but because that will affect what they understand they're being asked to do. For
yeah.
some of us, that came implicitly. Some of us had parents who were educated and they use vocabulary in our normal conversations that prepared us for that.
Mm,
And some don't have that background. And that's why school is such an important setting to level the playing field, socioeconomic disparity playing field, because we know that there is, vocabulary differences based on how educated your parents were. There's
exactly.
also
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
also differences based on the level of education of your mother. So we now know that it seems not only environmentally but genetically, children derives a lot of their ability from the mother. So
Wow.
supporting women in education is not just so, or saying a woman should not be supported through education because she's going to be a mother. That
Mhm.
is outrageous because if you want an
Yeah.
educated generation, you need to specially educate the woman because they are the ones who are going to be speaking from birth,
Yes.
good vocabulary,
Yes.
good grammar, good. And so I know this, as a nurse development, I had to take health human development courses, and I also actually have taught human development to nurses. So I know these things. So I purposely always use high level vocabulary with my children. While I was homeschooling, the bulk work of our education was oral through good quality
Mm.
literature. So, and the reason for that is because we know linguistic development is so important for achievement.
My original I was an insurance broker. I know that sounds so funny, but then I retrained to become an early childhood teacher. But I don't recall doing a lot about the importance of oral language development um, back when I did my early childhood. I mean, oral language is like that foundation. It's it's all those little connections in the
And,
brain.
and it is the place where really, if you want to reduce disparities, academic disparities according to socioeconomic lines, that is the place to start.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
when when my children they went to Montessori, and especially because this country is so gracious to subsidize
Early childhood, yeah, from
early
yeah.
childhood
Mm.
education. So my kids went to early childhood settings, and they were mostly in Montessori. So Montessori was a little bit, they had more education on the pre-literacy skills. And
Mm,
yet, when I try to tell them, listen, I'm learning about phonemic awareness and phonological awareness, and this is what you guys need to be doing for
mm,
this. Can I give you guys a talk about it? There is this professional insecurity of, can you imagine somebody coming to me as a nurse? Let me give you a talk about how you're going to treat
mm,
diabetes.
mm, mm,
So
mm. Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah,
I mean, I understand that there's some limitations there, right?
yeah,
But I noticed that the awareness level of how phonological skills impact literacy that was not there even within a
yeah,
Montessori setting. They knew that it impacted, but they didn't know why.
yeah.
So they know that what the teachers explained to me, we noticed the 20% who cannot clap correctly with syllables. We notice
Mm,
it. We
yeah.
just don't know why.
We just don't know
And I
why.
said, well, that is the at-risk student. That's the one that you actually need to target to
Mm,
develop those skills. But they didn't know. They just knew that for some reason, some of them got it and some didn't. And I don't know what's up with that. So, yeah. So, in early childhood education, between using proper language, proper syntax, correct, um,
speaking in
teaching
sentences.
vocabulary,
Yeah, yeah.
speaking complete sentences. That's all part of leveling the playing field for the so when these children enter school, they enter less disadvantaged.
Mm, mm. Oh man,
Because there is that
yeah,
50,000 word deficit. I think
yeah,
that's what they call it, the 50,000 word
yeah,
deficit that children that come from privileged backgrounds have about 50,000 more words in their vocabulary than
yeah,
they
yeah. And
than
they're already starting up that little bit higher
yeah.
on
Yeah,
the rungs of the ladder than those that haven't.
that's right. All of these
Mm,
things are can be addressed. It's just a matter of awareness.
mm,
Also, the education professionals need to, you know, understand that not
mm,
everything is there is the impact of biology
mm.
and that we need to merge
Yeah.
both worldviews, not just the science worldview or not just the, social
Mhm.
science constructivist worldview. They both should work together.
Yeah.
And then you change your education around that, and
Mm,
people actually know what to do. Nobody wakes up not wanting to do a good job. Like everybody wants to do well. Everybody who can do well does well.
mm.
Um, and that's something that the Dr. Ross Green from the CPS model have taught me. He has a great book called Lost at School
Yeah.
that I recommend every teacher to read to understand how these developmental lags affect kids' behavior in school, their attainment, and the problems that they have.
All right, I'm just writing that down
And
because I'll make sure that I pop that in. So lost at
mhm,
school,
yeah,
Dr. Ross Green.
lost in school,
Oh.
or yeah, definitely looking into the CPS model. Dr. Ross Green came about 2 years ago,
Hmm.
and he ran some workshops here in New Zealand. Unfortunately, I found out too late and was not able to attend.
Mm,
But he does have training, and the main principle is kids do well if they can, and if they
mm,
cannot, it's not because they're being naughty or attention seeking, or it's not because I don't know the parents did drug. That's not
mm,
although those things impact,
mm,
is identifying the barriers and you as a professional helping them overcome those barriers or leveling the playing field so that they can do well.
mm.
Everybody, every adult, we all do well if we can. And
Yeah,
if when we
yeah.
can't, we just need to look a little bit deeper so we can remove barriers.
Oh man, yeah. I wish that I wish I wish you'd taught my son. I often think about that journey, but I have to like park that one. Yeah, a lot. I would honestly love to talk forever. This has been such an amazing chat. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that you had the time to be able to spend with me today. Um, and
My
yeah,
pleasure.
is there any advice out there? Like we'll finish up with this, but what advice would you like to give to someone starting to learn about literacy or um, neurodiversity. Yeah, what advice would you give the teachers that want to explore
That
more?
is a marathon, not a sprint.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah.
It's not a sprint. And one of a very important concept that I've learned through my coaching, but it also reflected a lot of the reasons why I actually found answers,
Mm,
is curiosity without judgment.
mm, mm,
When when we see things that does not quite make sense, just wonder
mm,
rather than judge.
mm,
And that is the premise of being able to find answers to people's problems. It's also the to notice, so mindfulness, notice, observe, be an observer, be
mm.
curious. And yeah, sometimes we judge and we are right, but sometimes we judge early and we miss the boat. So, so be curious, and because that's pretty much what led me to where I am, that I was just curious.
Yep.
My daughter is not reading. That her brain it doesn't read like my brain. Why
Mm,
is that?
mm,
You know? And so that is the also the the premise that allows you to engage in lifelong learning,
mm,
because this science is never complete. And
mm,
so we will always be challenged by new things that come up, or new information that gives us more nuanced understanding of why some things are the way they are.
mm.
So it's a marathon. It's
Yeah.
not something that is a sprint.
Mm,
There's a lot of um, challenges and a lot of changes for teachers, and they already are working really hard.
mm,
And so um, being patient, but don't lose your curiosity.
yeah.
And just that's the basic premise of being a good scientist is
Mm,
observation.
mm,
That is based on that. It's based on having the virtue of humility, which means being open to the idea that I don't know everything, and that new things will be open, new understandings will be open to me.
mm. And
That
that's
is the virtue
okay.
that,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Mm,
It's what enables us to tolerate uncertainty, which we live in very uncertain times.
mm,
So it's underpinned by a virtue, a character virtue called humility,
mm,
to be open to the fact that we don't know everything and that we will never know everything, and that everybody, through just plain exercise of curiosity, of asking questions, and also giving time, to
mm,
for the answers to come up, then we will find ways to solve our problems. And when we solve our problems, we learn, and then we're able to maybe help another one when they feel a little bit lost. So that's really what it is. It's about
mm,
um, going through life as an keen observer, curious, non-judgmental, as much as we can. We all judge,
mm.
it's not, but remaining in that curious space, which by the way is an is an ADHD strength,
It's
to
so
be
funny.
curious.
I wonder
Why
so
is
much
this?
about
And they
myself.
go and pull apart the whole thing, and then they don't know how to put it back together, but they were curious.
Mm,
So reframing
mm,
how we see things. Oftentimes our weaknesses are also, there's a flip side to them that
mm.
offers strengths. Things like that, I
Yeah.
think, are helpful, because this is a lifelong journey, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Man, I am certain that there are going to be some inspired teachers, parents out there after listening to this today. I'm inspired. Oh my gosh, I'm inspired. Yeah, and you've just made me think on so many levels about how to look beyond students and yeah, and especially when I think if we've got teachers that
it is
have
about
got
caring about humans.
yeah, yeah. And I think if we've got teachers that have got parents that are coming to them saying, I'm concerned, I'm worried, that's when we need to start digging a bit deeper too, because the parents are seeing one side um of their children as well. That we may
Yeah,
because we're not able to observe as keenly as we would like to because there's just so much going on in the classroom and so much
mhm,
noise and etc.
yeah,
It's to pay attention to those little things as well. um,
yeah,
and what
yeah.
you said about mindfulness as well, it's like taking that moment to actually step back, take a couple of deep breaths and look at a situation, yeah, without the judgment.
It is uh, to be able to support neurodiverse individuals, the people involved in their care need to have high levels of emotional regulation skills
Mm,
themselves.
mm. Oh,
These
absolutely.
are,
Yeah.
this is not a walk in the park.
No.
It's not. And so so I would like to extend the encouragement that the teachers themselves take time to practice
Mm,
mindfulness exercises, um, breathing exercises, and centering exercises, because the emotional labor that is required to teach, and it's not just it's not just physically demanding, it's emotionally demanding.
mm,
And systems and principles do play a big role in setting up environments and promoting environments that are supportive of teachers' emotional well-being. Because if they are dysregulated, if they're too stressed, you
mm,
cannot expect anything different from the children
mm,
themselves.
yeah,
Seriously,
exactly.
it's just
Yeah,
not possible.
yeah,
As a parent, I was under so much stress when I was homeschooling. I ended up getting shingles. Now
yeah,
I have, autoimmune diseases, so I had some predisposing factors there, but they not underestimating the emotional labor involved in teaching,
mm,
because people need to be well fed, they need to be well slept, and they
mm,
need to have enough recreation and relaxation in their lives so they can respond emotionally in regulated ways to children.
yeah,
You
mm,
cannot expect regulated children with
mm,
dysregulated and overly stressed teachers. That
mm,
is not consistent.
mm,
And leaders, system leaders, school leaders, they do have to understand the importance of teacher well-being
mm,
is equivalent to student well-being.
yeah,
Student well-being is equivalent to teacher well-being. They
yeah,
are not separate from each other.
yeah, 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 absolutely reciprocal relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Honestly, Eunice, I am so grateful for today,
Um,
and I know that there are going to be a lot of people out there who are really have really enjoyed this conversation as well. So Namahi for joining us today on Love Literacy Inspired. If this conversation lit a spark, please share it with someone who would love it too. You can follow on your favorite podcast app. At the moment, I'm on Spotify and I'm also on YouTube. And until next time, keep sharing stories, asking questions, and loving literacy. And thank you so much, Dr. Eunice Fuchs, for joining me today. All right, thank you.
Thank you for